is CGTN, China Global Television Network. Live from London, this is The World Today.
Hello, I'm Jamie Owen. Welcome to the programme. Our top stories: the death toll rises to at least 33 people after Typhoon Doksuri brought a week of record rainfall to the Chinese capital. Our other headlines: South Korea is on high alert as it braces for Typhoon Kanun after it rips through swathes of Japan. Over 40 people are injured in this blast at a Moscow factory making military equipment. Officials say it was caused by a lack of safety procedures. And Amazon countries agreed to boost cooperation to protect the rainforest, but failed to reach a deal to end deforestation. In China, the death toll from flooding in and around Beijing has now risen to at least 33 people, while more than a dozen others remain missing. The update came as a minute of silence was held for victims of last week's rainstorms brought on by Typhoon Doksuri. Days of record downpours triggered flash flooding in the Beijing suburbs, affecting around 1.3 million people. More than 200,000 buildings either collapsed or were severely damaged. Our correspondent Lucy Ray joined volunteers helping remote communities on the outskirts of the capital.
We're now heading towards Qianjuntai County. It's said to be the farthest and also the last county that has been losing contact.
There are more than 100 households in Qianjuntai. Most of the residents are elderly, whose children live and work in other cities. For the elderly, the terror of being isolated is exacerbated by their loneliness. Any rescue support now goes beyond the action itself.
I just want to thank them. I don't know what else to say. Also, a few days ago, some soldiers came here on foot to deliver us food and water. Their feet have been blistered seriously, and they don't drink or eat our food. We all cried here.
Warnings were issued before the rain came. The village has also prepared for the worst scenario. Yi Lian said her house was already in poor condition before the rainstorm. She was told by local officials not to stay there after Beijing issued a rain warning.
I was riding my scooter to buy some beer. All of a sudden, I heard a loud sound and I saw big smoke rising into the sky. I was thinking, whose house is on fire? Then I realized the roof of my house is collapsed in the rain.
Over the past week, the villagers have been finding ways to help each other. They worked together for 2 days to channel drinkable water from the mountain down to their residential well. But the system is also not stable, as there is no water flowing out when we arrive to film. Relocating people is important but difficult. This couple in their 90s decided to temporarily leave the village to a location where they'll receive better care. Today, the delivery and distribution of goods has been successful, but the rescue team has to leave soon before it gets dark in the village. Lucy Ray, CGTN, Beijing.
Well, much of northern China is still dealing with heavy rainfall. In the city of Fuyu in Jilin province, tens of thousands of people have fled after floodwater caused a breach in a dam. The region has endured record rain for nearly a week, with at least 14 people killed in the city of Shulan. Our reporter Zhang Saran reports.
I'm now in Fuyu City in northeast China's Jilin province, and behind me is the Lalin River. The flood peak just passed through here earlier this morning. At around 7 a.m., the water level here was around 142 meters, exceeding the guaranteed water level by around 0.2 meters, and the water level has been falling since. A total of 4 towns have been affected by the flooding in Fuyu. Over 23,000 residents were promptly evacuated, and 0 casualties have been reported.
In
anticipation of the projected flood peak, we diligently remain on active duty for a continuous span of 3 days and nights. My responsibilities cover coordination, data communication, personnel deployment, and patrols. Preemptive evacuation of village inhabitants was successfully executed. Our contingency plans were strategically implemented to align with the evolving emergency situation.
The Lalin River stands as a principal tributary of the Songhua River, which has now suffered its first flooding of the year.
The water level of the Lalin River is projected to return to its normal range around 8 p.m. today. To safeguard residents' lives, we have established 4 resettlement sites, 3 of which are currently operational. Each site is staffed with 4 medical professionals and provides sustenance and sanitation supplies. Our aim is to provide affected residents with a temporary refuge.
Authorities say efforts to restore normalcy to flood-affected areas in Jilin province are being accelerated, and the priority is to return to normal daily life as soon as possible. Zhang Siran, CGTN, Fuyu City, Jilin province.
Well, parts of Japan have been battered by heavy rain from Typhoon Kanun just as another storm edges closer. Flights and train services have been suspended during what's typically peak summer holiday season. The storm approaching Tokyo is maintaining strength after wreaking havoc in Okinawa province. Parts of the country have already seen a month's rainfall in the last week. South Korea has issued its highest weather alert as it also braces for Typhoon Kanun, which is expected to make landfall on Thursday. Strong winds and rain have already pounded the country's southern regions, prompting the closure of roads, ports and cancelling flights. 30,000 scouts attending the World Scout Jamboree have already been moved to safety. The European Union is pledging more than $439 million towards flood-ravaged areas in Slovenia after torrential rain there killed at least 6 people and left hundreds homeless. The announcement came as European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen visited the affected areas. It's the worst natural disaster since the Alpine state declared independence in 1991. Hundreds of firefighters are battling raging wildfires across southern Portugal that have scorched thousands of hectares of land and forced more than 1,000 people from their homes. Strong winds and high temperatures have slowed efforts to contain the fires, which have destroyed highly flammable pine and eucalyptus trees. At least 45 people have been reported injured after an explosion at a military equipment factory north of Moscow. People in nearby apartments had to be moved to safety as windows were shattered by the blasts, which also damaged a sports centre. The authorities have denied it was linked to an alleged drone attack by Ukrainian forces earlier in the day. Well, let's talk to our correspondent, Dasha Chernyshova, who's in Moscow for us. Dasha, tell us more about this explosion and what the authorities are saying about it.
No, that's right. An explosion occurred this morning in Sergiev Posad. This is just about 1 hour drive from the Russian capital, Moscow. We understand that took place at the factory that used to be producing optics and optical equipment. But according to the governor of the Moscow region, Alexei Vorovyov, the explosion took place at the territory that has long not been used for the optics, but instead this is where the pyrotechnics has been produced. So we understand that the blast has taken place on the adjacent territory where the warehouse for the pyrotechnical equipment has been located. At the moment, we have heard the authorities saying that at least 56 people have been injured, and some people are in the grave condition in the emergency room. We understand that 5 of those who are in the ER have their whole bodies burned, and several people have been found under the rubble. The fire locally has been localized, but the authorities say that the clearing up operation could take about 12 hours. So the emergency services are on the spot working with the sniffer dogs looking for the survivors who could be still under the rubble. We also understand that the fire has been localized, and the emergency services do say that the nearby buildings have also been damaged as a result of the explosion wave. From the local governor, Alexei Vorobyov, we have heard that 38 houses have seen the damage. The local authorities insist they will be helping people to restore these damage shortly. But the main version is the irregularities with the safety regulations. The local authorities have dismissed that this could have been as a result of a drone attack by the Ukrainian armed forces. Russia's the governor of Moscow region, Alexei Vorobyov, said that this version has not found any proof. But recently we have seen many attacks of the Ukrainian drones against the Russian capital as well as the other cities across Russia. This morning, the Russian Ministry of Defense has confirmed that 2 drones have been shot down by the Russian air defense system, one near the Domodedovo International Airport, which is to the south of the Russian capital. It has been shot down, and another one has been shot down on the Minsk highway. So certainly we have seen an increased number of drone strikes, at least attempts by the Ukrainian forces to attack the Russian cities. And most recently, there have been the 2 attempts to attack the Moscow city, the business center, and we have seen some damage done to the skyscrapers, with windows being shattered there and some damage caused, but no casualties have been reported so far.
Dasha, thank you. Our correspondent Dasha Chernyshova in Moscow. You're watching CGTN. Still ahead, first signs of resistance to the Niger government takeover as a former rebel leader and politicians create a movement to try to reinstate President Bazoum.
Ever wondered what's the difference between a bear and a bull market? Where are the cash cows? And who are the lame ducks? And what exactly are black swans, grey rhinos, and unicorn companies? Make sense of it all with Global Business, only on CGTN.
There's a new agenda for a new world, accelerating change in almost every part of our lives. It's shifting the norms of how we work, travel, and connect. How we think, interact, and develop. It's a new reality, a new agenda with me, Juliette Mann.
Events have consequences. Words create impact.
One more offensive in a long line of battles that's been ongoing for more.
Just got to be careful here with some gunshots. Excuse us, excuse us.
The world today matters for your world tomorrow.
The number of casualties is growing quickly.
Why, this is one of the hardest hit towns in the region.
The world today, every day on CGTN.
Hello, welcome back. A reminder of our top stories. The death toll rises to at least 33 people after Typhoon Doksuri brought a week of record rainfall to the Chinese capital. Our other headlines: over 40 people are injured in a blast at a Moscow factory making military equipment. Officials say it was caused by poor safety procedures. A former politician and rebel leader have launched a political movement to try to reinstate the ousted president Mohamed Bazoum. The move by Rissa Agboola is the first sign of internal resistance to the military since they took over power. Let's talk to our correspondent Deji Badmus in Lagos, in neighbouring Nigeria. Deji, what do we know about this rebel leader, and potentially how significant might this new movement be?
Well, Rissa Agboola is a well-known politician and former rebel leader. He led, of course, a rebel group back in the 90s, and he's a politician as well. I mean, at some point, he was the country's Minister for Tourism. He held that position on 2 different occasions under 2 different governments, under the government of Ibrahim Nasara, who came in through a coup as well. And then he held the same position under President Mamadou Tanja before the government was toppled. But he is very well known. He's led 2 different rebel groups. And he's also known to have connections to some groups now in Libya. So he's someone to be taken very seriously. I mean, this is quite significant. This might just be the beginning of something big to come. Before now, the junta had portrayed an image of popularity, if you like, that the coup it staged against President Bazoum was popular. We had not seen any dissent at all. But now this is the beginning and could be the beginning of something big. And the statement issued by the group, by the way, is known as the Council of Resistance now for the Republic. It says there are quite a number of politicians who are members of the group, even though they are not coming out to disclose their identity for now, but that their numbers will continue to grow and that they are ready to support every international effort to restore President Bazoum back to power. So this is quite interesting. It's an interesting development. We just have to wait and see what happens in the coming days. But there's no question that this is not a good one for the military junta there. Of course, it will try to dismiss this, but this could just be something very big to come. Jamie?
Deji, keep us posted. Thank you for that. Our correspondent, Deji Badmus in Lagos, in neighbouring Nigeria. Leaders from 8 Amazonian countries are holding a final day of talks in Brazil aimed at trying to coordinate their response to deforestation. This is the first time the Amazon Cooperation Treaty Organization has met in 14 years. The link between deforestation and man-made climate change is long established. Brazil is particularly vulnerable to the loss of rainforest. President Lula has said he wants to end deforestation there by the year 2030. Well, let's talk to Rachel Garrett, Moran Professor of Conservation and Development at the University of Cambridge. Professor, welcome. Good to see you. Thanks for your time. No deal. I mean, is this a failure, a success, or something in the middle? What's the analysis?
Well, I think we'll know in the future. It's hard to say right now. I think the event itself is really important because, as you said, it hasn't happened in 14 years. And I've actually heard good things, positive things about the desire to work more together, more cooperatively, rather than each country doing it alone, and a sort of unified vision around where the region wants to go in terms of positive developments, not just blaming and shaming regarding things that are going wrong. And I think all of this is really really good and really positive right now, with President Lula really steering the ship and being so prominent because he's very pro-environmental, very pro-indigenous rights, and has made some very bold commitments to zero deforestation in the Amazon. And so all of that is something to be very optimistic about. But it really has to materialize. And what I think these leaders are looking for is also a change of tone from the international community in terms of not just shaming and pressuring the region, but actually committing financial resources and scientific knowledge towards solving these challenges.
What do you say to those people who just shrug their shoulders and say, do you know what, this is just too little, too late?
Oh, it's absolutely not too late. There's a huge amount of the forest remaining. 80% of the Amazon forest is remaining. It's the biggest success story in the world in terms of how much deforestation was actually reduced in the last 2 decades. There was a big setback when Michael Temer and Jair Bolsonaro took leadership positions in Brazil, and also during the same period, there was a lot of rollbacks and setbacks as well throughout the basin in many different countries. But we did see a huge shift, a huge reduction in deforestation after 2004, and then it just started going back up again after 2015, and it's still lower than it was at its peak. So those are all good things. And it's definitely not the time to take the foot off the gas pedal. It's the time to double down. And we know a lot more. We have better information, better knowledge than before. We have a new vision The region, the scientists are amazing, the grassroots organizations are amazing, the indigenous communities are increasingly powerful, and they now have some ideas about how to grow the value chains and create value and enhance value from the standing forest. And all of that is actually very good.
What would the best possible outcome be from this gathering?
I think a unified vision of exactly what types of deforestation control efforts need to be increased, some cooperative level deforestation monitoring processes, the establishment perhaps of a central intelligence and data portal for monitoring these items, more of a Amazon basin-wide initiative to attract funding, finance for avoided deforestation, whereas before it was very country level, and that to some extent is necessary, but the greater the scale, the more important it is to avoid spillovers between countries. So I think those types of international cooperation is the best case scenario as a contrast from go it alone approach. And I think an additional really important thing to come out of this is some unified vision about something called the socio-bioeconomy, which is the idea of not just trying to control problems, but how do we want to create value? How do you want to brand the Amazon? It's actually the home to all of these potential products and value that no other region can produce in terms of medicinal value and food products and cosmetics and all sorts of cultural heritage and the most diverse indigenous groups in the world. So I think that's the best case scenario, projecting that image forward in a cooperative way and working together.
Professor, good to talk to you. I'm sure we'll have you back on the programme again soon. Professor Rachel Garrett at Cambridge University.
Thank you.
Heat waves and wildfires that have hit Greece have exposed a series of problems it's now facing due to climate change. High temperatures and a lack of rainfall are creating water shortages, meaning that farmers are having to change their habits. Our correspondent Evangelos Tsipsas reports.
It's just before sunset, and it's this time that Thanasis waters his crops for the final time of the day, hoping to keep them cool through the evening. But with the country facing extreme temperatures by morning, the field is dry and some crops burnt.
All my fields are experiencing the same problem from the heat, especially my cornfields. In May, when I was supposed to sow the seeds, I couldn't because of the increased rainfall. I had to delay it to the end of June when it got warmer. The crops can't grow properly, resulting in a difficult farming season.
And that difficult season is visible from above, with far drier fields than healthy green ones. Like many countries in Europe, falling groundwater levels are to blame. And in Greece, it's mostly noticeable in the Thessalian plain, the heart of the country's farmland. Adding to the problem, the lack of fresh water from lakes and rivers due to the mild winter. This has pushed farmers to plant crops that need less water, but this also means less income. It's something scientists warn could bring other imbalances.
Whether we like it or not, we need to reserve water. It's the only way we can increase the number of irrigated farms in Greece, because irrigated farms have 3 times more profit than dryland farms. I don't care what others say. For example, there is a new push by the government to plant crops that need less water. But if we do so, in my opinion, it will create food insecurity and price increases. I've raised the issue many times, but Athens isn't listening.
While the Greek government is planning to provide a tax rebate to those affected by the heat waves, many farmers warn that it won't be enough, as this year could be one of the worst for them on record. Some say they were forced to cut their crops earlier with the hope of breaking even. In a bid to help, a local group is working to provide water for the crops while also managing resources.
The periods of dryness, lack of rainwater and heat waves are becoming the new norm. So we focus our research and work on customizing the irrigation process to use less water. I know it's something we wish we could avoid, but it's reality and we need to adapt.
Scenes like less irrigated farms, dried up rivers, and low water levels in lakes are becoming more and more common here in Greece, and scientists are sounding an alarm they say is not being heard by the central government. Evangelos Tsipsas for CGTN in the region of Thessaly.
41 people are now believed to have drowned after a migrant boat sank off Italy last week. 3 children were reportedly among the passengers when the boat capsized close to the island of Lampedusa. All of those on board are said to have been travelling to Europe from sub-Saharan Africa. 3 survivors say only a handful of migrants had been wearing life jackets. The vessel reportedly set off from Tunisia. The UK says it struck a deal with Turkey to slow the number of migrants leaving the country for Europe. A new centre of excellence will be established to train Turkish police hunting people smuggling gangs. Ankara has also said it will crack down on the illegal manufacture of inflatable boats. This follows a 10-fold increase in the number of migrants arriving in the UK from Turkey since the start of the year. And finally, Chengdu has said goodbye to the competitors from the World University Games. Now the city turns its attention towards transforming the stadiums back into venues for everyday use. Our correspondent Jung Song-woo reports.
Opened on July the 22nd, the Athletes Village at Chengdu University was strategically designed to accommodate and meet the needs of over 7,000 athletes and coaches from around the globe.
The village encompasses more than the essential functions of dining, transportation, and lodging. It embodies the significance of cultural exchange and commercial activity. Over the course of 2 weeks, these events have generated a remarkable revenue of $800,000 within the village. I'm convinced that the village concept marks the pinnacle of all similar sports-based establishments in China.
The repurposing of the Athletes Village after the spotlight turn-off, including those employed for the Olympics and FISU Games, remains a global challenge for host cities. Experts in China say the Chengdu FISU Games has the potential to set a precedent for the rest of the world to follow.
We ingeniously transformed Chengdu University into an athletes' village without building new buildings. Our approach capitalized on existing dormitories, classrooms, and gymnasiums. All of these spaces can be seamlessly converted for residential and educational purposes well before September arrives.
With the conclusion of the Chengdu FISU Summer World University Games, the curtain falls on the stars of the show. But there are plans for the venues to continue serving the public's sporting needs. Zheng Song, CGTN, Chengdu, Sichuan Province.
The headlines again. The death toll rises to at least 33 people after Typhoon Doksuri brought a week of record rainfall to the Chinese capital. Our other headlines, over 40 people are injured in this blast at a Moscow factory making military equipment. Officials say it was caused by poor safety procedures. And Amazon countries agreed to boost cooperation to protect the rainforest, but failed to reach a deal to end deforestation. And that is the world today. Thank you for watching. There's more news on CGTN Europe's channel on the Telegram app, or scan the QR code on the screen to get stories and updates sent direct to your phone. We're back with more news at the top of this hour. Coming up next, it's World Insight. For now, from all of the team in London, it's goodbye.